Hi, welcome to Ladies Who Leap podcast. Today I'm going to be talking to Amy Wineland Daughters, and among the many things that she does, she really became an accidental author and speaker and found her purpose through writing letters to every one of her Facebook friends. But it all started with writing a very profound and beautiful and compassionate handwritten letter to a friend of hers named Dana. So take a listen. It's a unique story and it'll make you not only feel good within your heart, but also give you some real tips about how to communicate effectively and with a lot of compassion with friends and people that you haven't necessarily met, but are on Facebook with you. So have a great time. Welcome to the empowering world of the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where brave souls share their remarkable journeys of venturing beyond their comfort zones to craft lives filled with passion and purpose. Tune in to hear the awe-inspiring tales of individuals who dared to defy their fears and embrace the unknown, paving the way for a future they truly adore. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. Hi, welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. I am honored to have my guest today, Amy Wineland Daughters. Amy Wineland Daughters is a keynote speaker, letter writer, and you'll learn more about that, satirist, sports journalist, and the award-winning author of 2 books, one of them being Dear Dana, That Time I Went Crazy and Wrote All 580 of My Facebook Friends a Handwritten Letter. There's a little hint for you. And the second book, You Cannot Mess This Up, a true story that never happened. She is absolutely convinced that when human beings connect individually in a meaningful way, that nothing can separate them. I love that message. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So before we get to the book that catapulted your brand and you and that amazingly fun story, I want to kind of start when you started writing. Where did that all come from? Tell us more about that.
Right. And I wasn't trained to be a writer, which has led to, kind of layers of imposter syndrome that we all struggle with anyway. But I have a business degree. And so I spent about 15 years in Houston, Texas in the purchasing arena. My husband and I both had careers where we had moved our way up in our respective paths. And then in our 30s, his company came to him and said, would you like to move to the UK for 3 years? And we were like, oh, fun. Like, how are we going to get to travel like that on our own nickel and have that experience? We had one child at the time and he was younger. So we go over there and we're not in London. We're about 100 miles north of there near Birmingham, which is the second biggest city. And and I was like, this is great, but the kid went to the village school, and I was like, wait a second, what am I supposed to do now? Because I had been like all of us, busy with all the things. And so the first thing I did is I went to this local university and took history classes. But then, out of desperation, because that wasn't enough, I'd always creatively written. I'd written short stories in high school. I had written in college, and then I was the person at work who would like write emails and read them again and again and think how profoundly moving my company picnic email was, or my email about Kendall Jackson Chardonnay. It changed the whole company. And so I was like, wait a second, this is something I like to do. And we had just gotten high-speed internet. So it was like 2004, before things had really kicked off. But I realized that by the time I got home, I can sell this writing and I can be a freelance writer. And I created a little niche for myself. And I was pregnant when I got back to Texas. And so there was another delay. And by the time I had the second kid and was ready to go back to work, I had pretty much replaced my income by writing and mainly writing about sports. And and so I took a major career path, and I always ask myself, so what happens if you don't go to England? And I have no idea the answer to that question.
Yeah, because there are some things that happen for you, and not some, everything in your life happens for you. So going to the UK was the way that you discovered writing. There was nothing else to do. I remember just recently you told me you were like sitting on a farm. What do I do? How do I pass the time? Right?
Right. I was in a farm in the middle of this beautiful English countryside. And I always say I started writing out of desperation. And that's a great story. And I think both my books have a similar narrative. It's like I was just minding my own business and some stuff happened. But I think that's maybe the way life approaches me, or life and I meet. That's just the way it happens. And I think that that makes that non-intentionality on my part really works well for me and the ideas that have come out of that. So,
So just to ask a little bit more about this, when you were in the UK, what were you thinking about, or were you even thinking about what am I going to do with my life? I've now, this is kind of, UK has put a little upheaval, a little change in there, and you have a small child, right? So were you actually consciously thinking about what you want to do and what it is that makes you light up?
well, I think I was, and I think that's how I came upon writing. And I think I was given this pause in my 30s. I was like 35 that most people don't get. I
Mm,
was given this like kind of a dramatic pause because I was out of contact with everyone in my whole life physically, and at that point there was no voice over IP phones. So if you were going to call mom or your sister or your BFF, you were going to call on a landline and you were going to pay an international phone charge. So that set up well too. So it was isolation, it was desperation, and then but I was given this gift of a moment, more than a moment, several months and years to reset my whole life financially, professionally, personally. I mean, our marriage got stronger because we were, you're kind of and it wasn't a terrible move, but you're in like the trenches because there's no one else there who knows you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's almost, it was like giving you a gift. It really was. You were
Oh,
getting a gift.
yeah, and I told the owner of my husband's company we've moved several times, and they always thank me. Like I get, great feedback, like thank you for moving, and I'm like, no, thank you, because my life story is not my life story without these moves, and I feel like my husband's career, gifted me with this whole other trajectory of my life.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh, see, that is so good way to look at it. So your letter, we're going to go into it now. Your letter writing journey is so fascinating, and it goes to how words matter. And it was, to me, a literal leap that came out of necessity, kind of what you were just saying, for better communication with one person. And I have to say, I'm so impressed that you shared it on the Kelly Clarkson show. I'm a fan. So this is something that just blew up and really changed, another change in the trajectory of your life. Let's go through that wonderful story.
yeah, and I love the term power leap because I think we get a few opportunities for a power leap, and I think this story is a power leap, and
Mm,
it's example of how I think we all have a power leap in us, and this is what you speak about, so I'm not going to speak to your topic, but I think I can identify with the power leap in this story,
yeah.
and because basically I was minding my own business. I was doing the sports writing. I had written my first book, but it hadn't been published yet, and I just got on Facebook, just innocuously, just Facebook, and I had this girl's name in my head who I'd worked at a summer camp with 35 years ago. I had not had any contact with her in all these decades, none. And her name had always floated and we'd probably spent 6 weeks together at this camp, but we both were loud. We both thought we were funny. We had a couple serious conversations. And you know how people just stick somehow in your heart, in your spirit, wherever. And so I sat down and typed her name in Facebook, and boom, there she was. And so I friend her because it means nothing, and so she accepts my friendship request because I don't even know if she knew who I was or remembered because it had been quite a while. And so the first thing I do is the 7 minute, obligatory stalk right through her life. I scroll through her profile and make all those assumptions we do, not in a bad way, but as human beings, because we're interested in this other human being's life who I'd shared this sweet moment in time with. Well, right away, I figure out that her name was Dana, and Dana had overachieved in children. She had 5 kids.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, wow, she knocked it out of the park. I was like an amateur at that. And she had 4 daughters and one son, and he was the youngest. And the youngest son is Parker. And right away, it was clear that Parker was battling cancer, and it was serious enough that he was at the St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis. And I think I didn't know a lot about St. Jude at the time, but I assumed that if you're there and you live in another state, it's going to be a serious. So right away, and I kind of felt myself over feeling it, but as a human being, as a mom, I was like, oh, worst case scenario. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. And then she asked people to pray, and I like to pray, so I did that, but I never hit like, I never hit comment because I felt like that was disingenuous. I'm this girl from the past, and this girl's in the battle of her life, in the battle none of us want to even consider. So I sat back and watched, but I did get involved, and I could feel myself getting emotionally attached to the story. And I didn't really question it. I was, because it didn't mean anything. Like, she wasn't going to know that. I mean, I was just sitting over in my house, and we lived in Ohio at the time. And so I follow along with the story. He goes into remission. They go back and they live in Louisiana. That's about as much as I knew. And then he relapses, and at the end of 2015, in the fall. I'm like, wow. And so I get that news on a weekend. I sit down at my desk to start my writing assignments for the week on Monday morning, and it was like a lightning bolt hit me in the head. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start writing them like cards, like supportive cards, and I'm going to send them to Memphis where they were returning to, because I knew they were going to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. And that despite the fact that this person probably didn't really know who I was. I'd never met the kid. I hadn't written anyone a letter in 25 years. I like a lot of people, grew up writing letters, but that all stopped when email came about. No more letters. So I wasn't like the letter writing lady coming into this. And really, the story is different levels of me being irrational. So this was kind of level one of my craziness. So I start writing Dana and Parker every week. And I had this college football writing schedule, and I just added them. They were my Sunday for Monday. And it started off as notes like, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, fight hard, all the things you'd say, you don't know somebody. But then I was like, oh, I could say more because I'm a writer, and brevity is not my gift. And so I just started saying, oh, I have two kids, and blah, blah, I'm a sports writer. And I just started telling about my life. And I started to see the power of that. Like, I was looking at my life from the outside in. So I write for probably 12 weeks. And then unthinkably, and this has nothing to do with me, and there's no good way to put it, but Parker loses his battle, and he's only 15 years old. So had nothing to do with me. I send a condolence card, and I'm like, well, I guess that wraps it. Like, what am I supposed to do? Because I felt so like invested in this letter writing thing. And so I send the condolence card. I go to, like, I sit at my desk another Monday or Tuesday morning, and it was like a mini lightning bolt. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to keep writing her because I feel like that's what I should do. But only now, Lisa, I have to figure out where she lives in Louisiana and where I send this card, because I can't message her and say, you are suffering like no one has ever suffered. And what's your address? You can't
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
How do you, yeah. Oh.
So I stalk her husband's uh, address as work address. He's an attorney. And so crazily, I just keep sending the letters there. So this goes on for about 4 months of me thinking every single time I read her a letter, it's once a week. And every time I drop it in the mailbox, I'm like, you're crazy. This is nuts. What are you even doing? She lost her kid. You're just writing a bunch of words. You care, but and so 5 months later, on my birthday, I go out to my mailbox and I pull out, there's a 10-page handwritten letter from this woman. And she pours out, and she said at the end of the letter, I didn't really even expect to do that. She pours out about her grief, about her kids, about what's going on. And this kicks off this amazing 2-year journey of us writing each other. That's all we did. We didn't text, we didn't email, we didn't have each other's phone numbers. And it's like 2016. So who's even doing that? And there's this amazing free space that gets naturally created between the two of us, because she has no idea when or if I'm reading her words. I have no idea when or if she's reading my words. She's not sitting in front of me, so I can say whatever I want to. I start looking at my life from the outside in even harder, because the pages just start piling up, talking about my marriage and my job and my kids. And I'm like, oh my God, I got such clarity. It was almost cathartic to write about it, and to send it to another human being who's going to read it. She tells me about her grief, about her kids, about all the things I can't know on the internet. She told me after the fact that she would go into a room, and here's the 4 daughters and the husband who are just suffering. And if everybody seemed to be having an okay day, she would just write me rather than bring the room down. And those are her words, not mine. And the best part was, we had no idea like how we voted, like what our socioeconomic level is, like what we believed in, what our approach to gender issues were. We had no idea about any of that, and we just trusted each other. We would say stuff like, I've never told anybody this before, but I know I can tell you. Like, who does that? Like, I didn't even know who she was, and I was giving her all my beeswax. But so after about 6 to 8 months of this, it really changed the way I looked at everything. It was so intimate. It had a profound impact on me. And I say this not even knowing the impact it had on her at the time. I just knew it changed the way I looked at everybody around me, because everybody around me looked like a potential letter writing target. That, like, what was their real story? So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? If there's that much goodness in this one random girl from Louisiana, what about the other Facebook people? And then I went bananagrams, Netzo. And I was like, I'm going to write everyone a letter, all of them, and see what untapped goodness is on this list of these random people who I know to different degrees. So I got an Excel spreadsheet. I put everybody's names in it. And then I put them all in a box. I cut them all up. I bought stationery that said like your Facebook friend, Amy Wineland Daughters. I mean, it was hilarious. And then I got a journal and I was like, here's the rules. Let's go. And I never really thought I was going to finish. I thought it was crazy. I thought
Yeah.
I'd fizzle out after about 25 letters. But every letter I got into this thing, I was like, wait a second. This is probably the most important thing I'm ever going to do in my life. And when I got to like letter 100, and every time I'd hit a milestone, I was like, I can't quit now because one, people are expecting the letters because the element of the surprise was over. And two, this is going to be the best version of myself that I ever live in this life. And so it took me 18 months, but I wrote 580 handwritten letters plus the Dana ones. And it absolutely changed my life and my heart to the point that I cannot shut up about it. I wrote a book, I do a speech about it, and I will literally show up anywhere and talk to anyone who wants to talk about it.
I can't help but see the relationship between writing letters that truly are coming from your heart and opening you up to the world and sharing information that you don't share in a regular conversation or certainly not on Facebook or on social media, and how that relates to like your unconscious mind. Because I work a lot with my clients with their unconscious mind. And even though that you're doing this consciously, when you were writing, it sounds like you were really coming from somewhere very inner, inside your mind, somewhere where you were being completely vulnerable and okay with it. I mean, I guess what I would say is on these Facebook friends, was each note or letter very individual? Did you share about yourself? I mean, did you have like a kind of a structure that you went or by, or did you just free flow? And how did that work?
Well, I came up with like a basic structure only because I wrote so many letters that I came up with a formula without trying to come up with a formula. Just that means like I had a crazy idea and I did the power jump. Because the real power leap in the story is when well, it was Dana to start with, but the jump to 600 letters was really the point where I went, like I said, bananagrams. But I came up with a little formula. Every letter was individual. It was 2 pages. And so you had to fill the page. So the first paragraph was always, here's the story. This is what I'm doing. I'm writing every single one of my Facebook friends. Here's Dana, here's Parker. And it was like an elevator pitch, like 5 sentences. I could tell you exactly what I was doing. And then, so I was like, what else do you say? Well, the first step was pretty obvious. You go look at their profile.
Mhm.
You go look at their profile. And if you think about that was, and again, each of these steps end up to being a very moving, like profoundly impactful step on me because it's not something we do on social media, treating every person individually. I think we feel like we do, but we don't because we are not required to do that in any way. So, first thing I'd sit down and I'd say, okay, Lisa, okay, I knew Lisa in high school. So what's Lisa up to? And first of all, I'll be like, oh my God, Lisa is a rock star. She is doing this podcast. She is doing this coaching. I would go listen to the podcast probably, or at least a snippet of it. And I'd be like, oh my God, look at the impact she's making. And then I would see from your post, because I'm looking at you individually, and I cannot tell your whole human life from your profile, but I can get a much better idea that you're living a very real life just like I am. And let's say you lost your mother or your mother was sick. And then I would be, and that, oh, these are great things for me to be able to say in a letter, though. Oh my God, Lisa, I'm so sorry that you're going through that. Oh my God, Lisa, you're a rock star. I'm so proud to be your friend. Oh my God, Lisa, congratulations, or whatever it is. And I learned over and over again that it didn't matter how long it had been, because I was real nervous at the fact, let's say I wrote somebody whose parent had passed away 5 years ago. You can still say you're sorry, even though it's 5 years. But that vulnerability that you're talking about, I had to fight that off every single day of this project. The whole, I can't say that, can I? And then when I started letting myself say it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is changing everything. But then the second part of the letter. So first of all, who is this person? What does the real life look like? And the second part was, who is this person to me? Because I got to fill the second page, Lisa. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I gotta say something. And I really didn't mean to say anything meaningful, but I ended up saying a lot of meaningful stuff. And then I would look back and be Lisa from high school. Like, what was that like? And I was like, Lisa, she's the one who ate lunch with me. And when Larry broke up with me, we went over to the payphone and she was like, and I was hysterical. I was upset. And you were like, listen, girl, you're not going to let Larry define your life. Your relational life is going to be incredible. And I can't wait to see what happens next. We're going to walk back over to the table, get our milk together here, and and I'm going to walk through this part of life with you. And think about what I get to say to Lisa. Hey, Lisa, thank you for what you did to me in my life. You were your coaching self in 19 freaking 86, and we didn't even know it with our parachute pants. We had no idea that you just showed your hand, and we couldn't have seen it until we full circled here in this ridiculous letter that I have gone on a quest to write. And so think about not just receiving a letter like that, but think about what it would feel to write hundreds of letters like that. Because the person, and you alluded to this in the science of handwriting and writing things down, the person who was the most changed by this entire situation was obviously me, because it released something in me, again, that I just cannot shut up about, because it was so, the amount of meaning that each of these letters packed, the power I had that we all have in our little human toolkits. And I get to share that, um, and encourage people to do that because it is so powerful.
And social media has really taken away what you're describing right now. I mean, it's great that we get to contact each other and we're keeping up with pictures or whatever, but it really doesn't get into the depth of communication and a relationship with that person. And so what you're doing is, as you're talking, I'm thinking, oh my God, there's so many people that I can think of that I really need to write a letter to. And one in particular that I need to, because right now we're in a very divisive environment. So there are political things, there are things that are splitting us apart, but remembering that there are so many things that keep us together
Right.
and that you need to communicate and really have, if you're not going to be able to feel comfortable about having the conversation with it, which I know a lot of people shut down, it's real difficult. The word confrontation comes, where they shy away from that. It's not necessarily that. It's sitting down and writing a beautiful letter to talk about how you are empathetic with that person. I mean, a huge empathy and compassion I can just hear as you're talking about these letters. That is saying to a person, I see you and I hear you. How that is such a beautiful way to communicate, especially
Right. And
right now.
it's so, and you tapped into so many points about this story that are important. And the divisive culture we're in. I wrote most of these letters during the first Trump Clinton election. And I wrote to a lot of people who I knew. It's funny because I have less of a side, any side now because of this whole experience. But I knew people who didn't. I was writing to people who didn't believe what I did from a religious standpoint, who did not. I knew they weren't going to vote like I was probably going to vote. That they were on the opposite side of this abyss that we have absolutely created for each other to stand boldly on each side of. But when I did that little two-step process, when I looked at who the person's really looked like, and then I made that important relational transaction of who they are to me, all of a sudden, all those things, though they still mattered, they didn't dictate who I could and couldn't care about in these letters. And I walked away, and you said that in my bio. I'm convinced when two people meet with nothing but goodwill on the line, that all those things just start to dissipate. We have the power to just completely shrink that gap, just by making this intentional step. And people do see in an individual letter, and it does not have to be a 2-page letter. This is a really, really important point. You know, just because I need to write 2 pages because I struggle with being brief about anything, I, the power of this, and you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to do it 600 times. It can be done in 2 sentences. It can be done on a sticky note. And here's how it works. This is why it's so powerful. One, if you say something sincerely from your heart, that will never be taken the wrong way. And I put myself in a position of vulnerability over and over again with this thing. Because if you think of your Facebook friends list and think about writing each one of those people, you're going to see what I'm saying. But when people receive something handwritten, especially in the mail, you're going to create this moment in the mailbox that I had no idea could happen. They're gonna go, and this is before they've read your words of sincerity. They're gonna go, like, let's say Lisa sent me a card from Target, and she wrote something nice in it, 4 sentences about me and her time in high school, about how it's good I dumped Larry, even though Larry dumped me, but that's the way you remember it. So I go out to my mailbox, I pull that out. All of a sudden, I'm holding my hand something that you held in your hand. You don't want anything back from me. It's non-intrusive.
Mhm.
There's no expectation for me to do anything. I'm holding this in my hand though. I see your handwriting. And I realize right away what it's taken Lisa to give me this gift. Okay, she had to sit down, she had to find a pen. Wait, where's the paper? No one has envelopes anymore. Wait, where's the stamps? Now you had to text my mom or your mom to get my address, or you had to stalk me on the internet, even better. Then you had to get a stamp. Then you had to go across town and find a blue mailbox. And all of a sudden, I'm holding something in my hand that makes me 1,000% understand that I matter this much to another human being. And I will tell you what, boom, people people said they would hold on to the letters for the rest of their lives. That's what it meant to them. And I'm not the only one with this power. And the really important thing is not to frame Amy daughters other than being Scott, hot and skinny, and young and all those things. I'm not some incredible person. We all have this toolkit, the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. Let me stumble on this and then let me share it. Anyone with a human heart and a pen and 73 cents can participate in this beautiful, impactful, almost too simple tool that we all have in our toolkits.
Wow. Yeah, I'm completely in awe at the fact that something so simple and as again, as you were talking, I'm thinking about when the few times when I've gotten handwritten notes or a thank you for something that I did for someone and they wrote a nice note in a card. Really, I do. I keep it for a while. I keep it for
Right,
quite a while. And then I go at some point years later, I'm like, okay, I don't need to keep this. But as soon as it came in, it gave me just a sense of warmth and a feeling like I matter.
right.
I really mattered to this person's life because they wrote something very personal to me. Wow. And you don't think about that anymore because this is not the days of, we don't have to handwrite anything. We have email, we have text, we have messenger, we have everything, every other way to communicate. We have Zoom, right? Like we're doing
Right.
now. So, but a handwritten note is so personal and so rewarding to both sides, the person writing it and the one receiving it.
Right. Everybody on each side of the transaction wins. But I think the plot twist for me was because we assume that when we reach out to each other and say something sincere and meaningful, that's the person who receives it is the most changed. But again, the person who's most changed is the writer, I believe. And I'm not just speaking to myself. Anyone, if you write one note or you write 100, it's going to do something to you. Because one, there's something about writing something down that it triggers something in your brain. You talked about coaching people, like even if you were going to journal, I think the same thing. And there's science attached to all of this. But I know for me, I still write someone a note every morning because it honors the story, it honors the best version of myself. It's so impactful, but it allows me every day to do one thing that is so hope filled in this world that we're living in right now. It's one chip in that huge walls that divide us, and it gives us a sense of it's almost power. We have power to do something good in such a simple way. It's so easy that it's easy to overlook, and it's also applicable. And this is what's really shocked me in my journey of telling the story. I started getting invited after I started speaking, and I was on a lot of podcasts. I started having business people ask me to be on there because it kind of transitioned from inspirational to coaching to like real estate agents, and I was like, how does this even fit? And now I speak to business people and like referral based client bases because any place where there's a human to human relationship that could be enhanced, this works. This is powerful. At work, upwards, downwards, sideways, client facing, personal 100%, within a family, within a marriage. There's no place where this is not applicable.
Oh my gosh. And I was just thinking, I spent 41 years in the telecom industry in sales, and people buy from people.
Right. It's
You could
human
have the same
relationship.
exact product as somebody else, but people buy from people. So it's the relationship that you build. And I really nurtured that. I loved the fact that I was building relationships with people. That was the thing that I really liked about sales rather than, having this
Selling stuff. Yeah.
competitive thing about selling and making a bunch of money. And it wasn't, for me, it was about the relationship with people. So when you're speaking to those business people and you're telling them how this story and how this impacted relationships, that's powerful for them. They should really prioritize the relationship that they have with their clients and their customers rather than going into, okay, what can I sell them? No, no, it needs to really come from a place of a relationship. I want to help you look good. So the product that I have will help you look good. Whatever it is, I want to help you as a human being to human being type of relationship, right?
Right. And so many people have told me that when you take that sincerity, like go a little bit more vulnerable and just say something like, "Hey, valued client, I heard that you lost your mother, and I'm just writing to tell you that me and the team, we're just thinking about you,
Mhm.
and we care about you." And those things, and it also it takes you as a business person to the next level because it reminds you of your humanness, and it makes us feel good about what we can do in the world. Again, it's the same exact chain reaction regardless of where you're using it. It's this chain reaction of good, and it's so simple, but you do have to get over, because I still sit down and like on a blank card and I'm like, oh, do I have to do that? Because I'm a human being. I'm a human being. Like, I'm going to be vulnerable. I wrote a girl today who I've known forever, and somebody gave me the idea on one of these podcasts, like, you ought to write your kids and say 10 things you like about them. Well, I've been writing people and saying in my life I'm close to and saying, here's 10 things I like about you. But I sit down, that's such a good thing. But I sat down, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this today. But so I think that if you feel that, if you want to get involved in this, if you feel those speed bumps, those hurdles, that's 100% natural. But if you can fight through and power leap, this will give you a component of your life that you could not even have anticipated.
Yeah, and my gosh, if everyone in this world did this,
Hmm.
their capacity, whatever, it would you're right, it would change how people look at each other. And at this point in the game, we really need to support each other. I mean, this is super, super important that the empathy, that the compassion, that the way you actually see people and let them know that you see them is so important, especially right now. I mean, I can't say
Right.
more about that. Yeah.
No, and I did this over and over again. I put my hand of friendship out, not because I'm a great person, because I wanted to write all my Facebook friends a handwritten letter I'm nutso. But you put your hand across that line, especially the people who don't agree with you. If you put your hand and they grasp the hand back, it is life changing to you, to them, and it reminds us that the hope that we're all so desperate for right now is within it. It's between us. It's in each other. you know, I went to high school with this girl who I knew believed everything differently than I did. She was like letter 579, like at the very end of the project. And by then I was a great letter writer because I'd written so many of them in such a short amount of time. And I wrote her and said, look, I just want to let you know that I think you're very brave, based on the suburban box we grew up in, and you share your stuff without hate, because she was one of those people who shares very passionately, but she didn't do it in a way of hate. And I was like, I just want to let you know I learned from you. And I think I'm better because I know you and because I'm your friend. And I'm glad we're different, because I think that's what makes the world change finally. And she wrote me back, and think about it, this are people that were unfriending each other, still unfriending each other. That's what this was. And so she wrote me back and said, I am filled with such hope and optimism when I hear people from you. I want you to stay in touch. And then she said, love you. And then her
Mm.
name. And think about that. Now, if she walked in the door right now, I wouldn't act like I didn't remember who she was. And I wouldn't think, oh my God, she's the one who voted XYZ. Like, who cares? I would give her the biggest hug, and she would hug me back, and we would mean it. And all that happened was we had a previous relationship, and that was highlighted. It was fortified by these simple words exchanged between two people. That's all that happened. And it changed it that much. And we're still in touch.
Oh, that is so amazing. I know I have to admit, it polarized. I've got that polarizing feeling. And I just had a conversation that I regret, and I got a little heated. And so this conversation with you, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write her a letter because she is almost family, and what I did was wrong, and I realized that, and I want to not only apologize, but I also want to talk about what she means to me, and like you said, those 10 things that I'm really either proud of her for, or that she's given to me in my life. And so I'm going to sit down and write the letter after our
That's
call
it.
right now. So thank you. I mean, it gives you a way to do it where you can be brave. I think,
Right.
in a lot of ways, when you're talking to someone, it's a little difficult. And then that unconscious mind comes in and starts making decisions for you and your behavior and your beliefs, and you can't fight it because it's unconscious, and it just, the
Right.
I want to say the bad word comes out, the crap comes
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, how do I take that back? Whereas a letter, you can sit and think about it and you can really develop a communication that you feel comfortable doing and that comes out a lot better because you're thinking about it way more than when you're talking and it's just spewing out. Yeah.
Right, you have time. And the person's not sitting in front of you. So you're not looking for feedback or a response. And the beautiful thing about a letter too, and this sounds so simple, but it's so true, you're going to drop it off and you're going to forget half of what you said, you know, but you're taking the other person off the hook because you're not necessarily expecting a response because you don't even know if the United States Postal Service is going to deliver it or not. That takes you off the hook. It takes you off the hook. And it gives you such hope that you put that out there and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things that's the best feelings in the whole world. It really is.
So, I always say this about leaping, power leaping. If you hadn't moved to the UK, have you thought about what that would have cost you in your own life?
Oh yeah. I mean, I absolutely think that, and you said earlier in the episode, you said, what did you say? Things in life definitely happen for us. Is that
Mhm.
what you said? And I think my story is a testament to however you want to frame that, the universe, God, like however you want to frame that. And I think that we get scared in those moments too. I mean, I know I do. You're like, wait a second, and then all of a sudden, we never know. There's such hope in that we never know when we're about to take that turn, like when the next turn's coming up, and it's kind of embracing things. And I love hearing stories like the stories you highlight because I listened to several of your episodes, and you highlight stories like this that inspire all of us to remember that my next turn's right around the corner. Like that was great, but when's my next power leap? Not that I want it, but I'm saying it's out there, and the hope is in stories that you share, your story, my story, other stories that you share, and what it makes what you do so worthwhile and powerful. But you have to remember that it's almost a podcast is almost like a letter, Lisa, because you're sitting here doing this and you don't know what is happening out there. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I never even thought of it that way. But every time when you're speaking now, I think it's just such a profound message for people. And I think people that are listening right now, get out your pen and paper and
Right.
just find that one person that you really want to communicate with and or a bunch of people. And boy, if you
Right.
have it in you to do it to all your Facebook followers, God bless you.
Yeah. God
And
bless you.
do
And
it.
contact me if you're going to do that. But I think the thing is, this, like everything else that comes from somewhere inside of us, this whole process meets you right where you are. And I kind of like to say note writing because I think letter writing is overwhelming. Like you write a letter if you want to write a letter, but write a note if that's but use your personality. Like nothing I said should direct you. Like there's no blueprint because the number one rule in note writing is there are no rules. Like if you need 74 sentences, go for it. If you can do it in one, that's great. If you have bad spelling and your handwriting's not great, that's fine because you're showing your vulnerability in this filtered world that you're unfiltered. It's a lot like film photography, and the swing back to that is because it's not going to ever be perfect, but there's something so comforting about that because you're showing your vulnerability to another person. And then fight. I know I had to fight, especially at the beginning, like the feelings part, like thank you, Lisa, like here's what you mean to me. I mean, but because me saying those things I think meant more than the other person receiving them. But me saying those, my gratitude meter went right off the charts and I saw my whole life differently. But you have to fight all those things. Whatever holds you back from doing this, you just have to fight it because it's the better good at the other end of it.
Yeah. And when you were talking about, life happens for you, a lot of the people I've interviewed, bad things have happened
Right,
to them, right? And they don't understand it in the moment how that actually is going to change their life for the better. I mean,
right,
we have to remember that yes, bad things happen to people, and it is absolutely horrific, like your friend Dana and losing her son. That was absolutely horrific. It's something that a parent you don't ever want to have to go through, but unfortunately many do. And there are people that help with that. So understanding that from that can come good and you can be the one that did it. And so looking at it from the sense that it happened for you so that you can help others go through the same difficult experience is also part of this whole thing too. So, I'm going to ask lastly, can you give the listeners the most important piece of advice in nurturing relationships? I'm going to ask you that before I get your favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation, which I ask from everybody. So,
Right.
what's the most important piece of advice you can think of?
Well, I mean, I'm going to go with the obvious here. I'm going to say, you know, take the leap today to go and start so small. Just write something quick. Because a lot of times when I'm speaking about this, it's what happened to you today. As you think of one person, you think of one person. Maybe you think of three people. But before the end of this week, whenever you listen to this, or in the next 7 days, get the smallest note that Walmart or Target offers, a little note, and write your sentence and find the address and put a stamp on it and see what it does for that relationship.
Yes, just do it. So now I get to the point where I get to ask you for your favorite mantra, positive affirmation, quote. And I feel like if just one person gets affected by this, I mean, it's done its job, which is interesting because we're talking about letter writing and the fact that how powerful words are. And to me, quotes, mantras, positive affirmations are extremely powerful. They
Wow.
can, in a moment, in one sentence, take you to another place in your mind. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay, I'm going to read mine. It's a couple sentences. So, there will be a few times in your life when all your instincts will tell you to do something, something that defies logic, upsets your plans, and may seem crazy to others. When that happens, you do it. Listen to your instincts and ignore everything else. Ignore logic, ignore the odds, ignore uh, the complications, and just go for it.
Is that your own quote?
No, it's Judith McNaught. But I actually came across that quote in the middle of the Facebook project. So I always think of like poor Judith McNaught doesn't even know who I am. And she like that spurred me. And that was probably the letter 200 thing. And I was like, that's what this is. That's what this whole thing is. So that's my favorite quote now
Oh
because of
gosh,
that.
yeah. Yeah. And it tells everybody, go by your gut instincts, especially women, because we get these gut instincts much more and we usually listen to them, but then it's about whether you're too scared to take that step or if you have the courage to do it and understand that it's going to completely change your life. Because instinct, whatever the message is, you got to be open, listen,
Right,
hear, do it, trust yourself.
right,
Trust the universe, trust your higher power, God, whatever it is. Trust that it's telling you to do the right thing, whether it's silly
right.
with writing, almost 600 letters or not. Do it.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right. And they don't have to be the same. I think that, we live in this world where everybody wants a blueprint. Like, this is how you do it. Come on, brother. This is how you do it. No. And then the other thing we could do, and this a great testament to my story, is we can be the cheerleaders for the other people's great ideas. We can be the women who support the other women who are like, here's what I'm going to do, and be like, yeah, let's go. Let's go right now. And that's what this is. I had those people in my life, and they're part of the big part of the story, but we can be that for each other and help to get those ideas out.
Yeah, because I totally forgot to ask who is it that supported you through this journey. I know your husband probably did, but then there were other friends too that helped you.
Right. And I didn't share it at the beginning because that's me. Like I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. And but the element of surprise was so great with the letters at the first 150 or so, because nobody knew what was coming. By like letter 300, people were trying to friend me on Facebook. And eventually I had to shut that down because I was like, I cannot write any more letters to people. But I was living in Dayton, Ohio at the time, and I had my best friend there, and we would meet at Panera like every other week. And I'd be like, oh my God, Mary, I can't write another letter. And she was like, are you serious? You're seriously going to write another letter today? Like, this is not going to stop. This is the most incredible thing that's ever happened to either of us. You're going to write a letter. And she would always be like, duh, you're going to write another letter. And so I had other supportive friends, but she was the main component of that support with the Dana letters and with uh, the Facebook letters.
How fun. Well, I would love to have and understand how people can get a hold of you and either for you to speak because talking about this story is so incredible. So I'm sure whenever you're a guest anywhere or speaking, whatever it is that you'd like to share, I'll be able to share a lot more. So just, yeah, we can keep it to a couple ways that people can reach you.
Right. And really the best thing is my website. It's amydaughters.com. It talks about the speaking, it talks about the books, and there's my email address, and you can message me on there and all my socials. And then the best part is my mailing address is on there. And so if you can write me a letter, and I 100% promise you I will write you back.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Well, Amy, it has been a huge pleasure and honor to have you on my podcast because You are really doing something and have done something that is unique in this world and has such an impact. And I really feel like everyone who listens today, write at least one letter to someone that you really want to open up a very wonderful, empathetic, and compassionate relationship with, whoever it may be. Do it today. And then do another one tomorrow and another one after that. But at least start today. And so, Amy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It was an honor and it was a delight as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, everyone, remember to subscribe or follow and like, because that is how I can keep spreading these stories to everyone around the world. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you in next Ladies Who Leap podcast. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.